Hey everybody, it's Hannah.
And I'm Sam.
And today we brought you to ScióTÁMEN, also called Sidney Island, one of the southern Gulf Islands between Victoria and Vancouver.
And we are on a very special hunt for a very special species called eelgrass.
Come along with us. Sidney Island lies in the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish First Nations. It is accessible by kayak, canoe, boat, or a seasonal ferry. It is most popular for its sand spit, which reaches for several thousand meters to a lighthouse. The northern end of the island is part of Gulf Islands National Park and contains a government dock and a small campground. Sidney Island was one of the first regions of coastal British Columbia to be colonized by European settlers because of its proximity to the Fraser River gold rush of 1858. Not long after, a population of invasive fallow deer was introduced, which changed the ecology of the island by over-consuming the undergrowth. At the beginning of the 20th century, a brickworks was built by the Sidney Island Tile and Brick Company to capitalize off of the island's clay resources. This may be one of the more obvious effects, as discarded red bricks cover most of the campground's shoreline and have become incorporated into the estuary's ecosystem. Despite all of these effects, Sidney Island still boasts an impressive number of migratory bird species, frequent visits by marine mammals, and a sprawling eelgrass meadow.
This is Zostera marina, also known as eelgrass, and it's one of the 72 species of seagrasses found worldwide. Unlike seaweeds, eelgrass has a root system and leaves, and functions like any normal grass would, except underwater, of course. Zostera marina leaves are a dull green color, and they have 3 to 7 vertical veins running parallel down the leaf. They're usually about 6 millimeters wide, and they can grow up to 1.2 meters long.
In BC, eelgrass plays a vital role in habitat building for the many aquatic animals that live in our coastal waters, but it is also at risk. Seagrass coverage is being lost globally at a rate of 1.5% a year. That's equivalent to 2 football fields of sealgrass being destroyed every hour. This is largely due to the effects of climate change and the rising temperature of our coastal waters, as well as the biodiversity loss and foreign pollutants. Because eelgrass is a coastal dwelling plant, they are frequently exposed to runoff from land, which can contain fertilizers, road pollution like gas, and sediment. In addition to these threats, eelgrass habitat happens to be an ideal anchoring spot for boaters, since sand and mud are best for dropping anchors. Dropping and dragging anchors causes one of eelgrass's most detrimental threats, displaced sediment.
Today, we're bringing you to the entrance of Sidney Lagoon. Below us lies a network of eelgrass habitat caring for creatures big and small. The lagoon itself is a protected area marked by these white buoys, prohibiting boats from entering. Even us on a paddleboard can't cross the boundary. If sediment from the seafloor is picked up by these unnatural currents boats cause, it settles on the blades of eelgrass. This coating of sediment means the eelgrass can't effectively photosynthesize. Therefore, any activity that kicks up sediment, such as logging or fishing, can affect the survival of an eelgrass meadow.
Eelgrass is what we call a foundation species, meaning it creates or defines the habitat that it is in. A good example of a foundation species would be coral in a coral reef. It wouldn't be called a coral reef if there was no coral. The habitats created here are called eelgrass beds or eelgrass meadows. These microhabitats are among the most productive habitats in the ocean, with approximately 80% of commercially valuable fish and invertebrates depending on these eelgrass meadows at some point in their life cycle. The blades of eelgrass will slow the current of these waters, causing the plankton that was floating through to settle. This swell of plankton will attract lots of small filter feeders looking to eat the plankton, which in turn attracts bigger creatures looking to eat those filter feeders. This process makes the eelgrass beds a biodiversity hotspot. The density of the blades in an eelgrass meadow is a great shelter for creatures to hide in, as well as creating a safe, protected space for animals to use as a spawning area and nursery.
When foundation species like eelgrass are put at risk, the species that rely on them both directly and indirectly are also put in danger. For example, herring lay their eggs in eelgrass meadows. This attracts predators such as birds, seals, and whales to a reliable food source. When these meadows are lost, herring are forced to move or unable to produce surviving offspring. This impacts their predators, who lose their food source. Because of their importance, there are extensive efforts towards revitalizing eelgrass ecosystems around the Salish Sea, most of which led by indigenous nations. eelgrass has rebounded significantly in Howe Sound and Burrard Inlet, where the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations have spent many years transplanting eelgrass.
Transplanting involves reintroducing eelgrass to ecosystems where it's previously died off.
These specific areas have seen serious industrialization in the past 100 years, meaning the surrounding wildlife has been affected significantly for a long time.
However, promising indicators show how meaningful these conservation efforts have been. The reintroduction of eelgrass led to herring coming back, and for the first time in nearly a century, a gray whale entered Howe Sound in 2010.